Hey everybody, so in this video what we're going to talk about is how to use MIDI instruments inside of Wwise. So we're going to take the content that we created in the last video and import it into Wwise and start playing it back. So I'm going to start by opening up a brand new Wwise session, and then I'm going to start importing that content. So create a new session and I'm going to put it on my desktop. I'm going to call it Wwise MIDI. I don't need any of these plugins, so I'll just hit OK. I'm also not going to worry about the license for this tutorial. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull some of that content that I have put on my desktop here. So I have my MIDI file, and what I'll do is import that directly into the interactive music hierarchy, like so. And it will build a new segment for me. What I'm going to do is also name this so you know exactly what these tracks are. This is a track. By the way, I'm going to change my layout to interactive music so I can actually see the MIDI data on the track itself. Now this track here, that track is a track, so I want to name it that just so that's really clear exactly what these are. That's a track. This is my music example segment. Okay. Now, once I have those two built, what's it going to play? If I hit it play right now, nothing's actually going to happen because it's not mapped anywhere. And what I can do is I can select that MIDI example track and go to the MIDI here and then set a target for it, but I haven't actually imported any sounds or created any sounds yet. So that's what I want to do next. I'm going to go to the actor mixer hierarchy. This is usually where you put sound effects. We're going to create just a general sound effects container, and I'm going to switch my layout here so I can actually view it. I'm going to go to Layouts, Designer. That's where you usually do sound design. And then within the container itself, I want to add a source, and there's a special source called Synth1. And the Synth1 source, when you double click on it, has a basic synthesizer in it. It has two oscillators, and it also has a noise generator as well. I'm going to change one of these to sawtooth, leave the other on sine, and then what we can do is we have to do one more thing with this, which is on MIDI, on the MIDI tab on our sound, basically our synth. Let's rename this, by the way. Let's call it synth. Sometimes you have to click off of it and then back onto it to get it to rename correctly. I want to make sure to enable the note tracking. That means that when MIDI data comes into it, the note, a C or a D or an E flat or whatever, will actually track to the right place. Okay, so I go back to my MIDI example. I make sure to switch to the interactive music layout, which is function F10. And that brings up that track again. And then when I go to MIDI, what I can do is I can override the parent if I don't want to put it in the segment itself. But I could put it up here. But I'm just going to go ahead and say override parent, go ahead, put the synth as the target, and then play it back. And now if I play it back, we'll get to hear it. Now, it's in the wrong octave, so what I'll do is go back over to my synth and I'll quickly adjust that. I can change my root note to C5 because I want to go down one. So now when I play it, it should be correct, at least in the correct octave when I play it. And that's how you get a standard MIDI file to play. Now I'm going to do something a little bit fancier with my next example, because what we're going to do is we're going to take the exported data, the loop data that I created in Recycle, and now use that as my sequence to create like a loop file. So let's do that. First thing I want to do is go ahead and get my raw material. So I have my Recycle loop and I have a MIDI track here. I'm going to import it, and I'm going to import it as a new music segment. And again, I'm just going to relabel these. So this is a segment, and this is a track within that segment. Okay, and the track itself has MIDI data on it. It's it's basically going C, D, E, F, G, A. It's basically going up the scale to play each one of those different slices that I created with inside of Recycle. So what I'll do now is I have to create a special type of sound effect object to get this to work. I go to New Child, and then I go to Blend Container. So in a new Blend Container, and a blend container basically allows me to create a bunch of different sound effects and play them together. And I'm going to key map those. I'm going to switch over to my F5 layout, which is the designer itself. And you can see down here, I don't have any slices or sound files or wave files loaded up yet. So I'm going to go back to my desktop. Here are all my wave files from each one of my slices. I'm going to drag those in. Oops. I have to drag them up to here, and then it asks me to import them. I'm going to import them directly into this blend container, and there they are. I can also see them up here, and I have my blend container all set, ready to go. I want to enable. So with note tracking, I can actually change it so I don't need to note track this stuff. I don't need to transpose it. It just needs to play at the standard pitch. So I'm going to leave that just as the way it is, but I need to go to the key map editor to kind of map it. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is go down here to my demo track, switch to F10, which is my interactive music layout, and apply this demo track MIDI-wise. I'm going to override the parent and go directly to my new blend container. Now, this is going to play that blend container. Now, it's going to sound pretty weird because it's going to play on each note, it's going to play all of those slices, and this is what it sounds like. Oops, I'm not listening, but I'm listening to my blend container. I don't want to do that. I want to listen to my segment, so I'll do that here. Now I'm listening to my segment, and I play it. Okay, that's the raw data, and it's playing all 10 of those slices or whatever on each note. And what I want to do now is map the key map for that. So I can go right to my blend container, go key map editor, and map these individually to where I change the minimum range and the maximum range. So for this one, I'll go C3. I think it starts on C3. We're going to find out. So C3 to C3, and then it goes, I think, D3 to D3. I can't remember whether it's chromatic or not, but we're going to find out soon enough. And so I'm just going to go up the scale, and then we go F, G. It's probably chromatic after I do all this work. A, and then B3. All right, let's test it now before I get into the next octave to see how it works. So I'm going to go over here and then go ahead and try and play my segment container. All right, so we found out that I'm in the wrong octave. So I go back here to my key map editor. So I think it's mapped to C4, so I'll try that. Before I get too far along here, let's make sure that that's what it is. Go back to my drum tools segment, and then I play it. Okay, something else is wrong, and I'm going to check that out. Okay, so I had to stop the video because I had to figure out what was going on. Basically, in the blend container itself, I still don't need note tracking on, but when I went to my key map editor, I figured out that, oops, I'd really messed it up. I need to start on C2 instead of the other octaves I was starting on. So if I start on C2 and then go through the mix here, basically, and it needs to be chromatic, so that was the other thing I sort of figured out. And once I've done that, now when I map my drum tool segment to my blend container, and I go over to my interactive music layout, and now I play it. I'll play it again. Then it works really well. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and looking forward to seeing you in the next one.